And welcome to the next class. I lost count what number it is, but it's the next one. Actually, Chaim, I think we're going to jump from chapter 2 to chapter 3. So I think we'll stop the video and then we'll start again. This way, it's uploaded in nice sequence. Yes. So first of all, we'll start with L'chaim. People watching the class are going to think that we're sponsored by Corona. I mean, we're not. But if you want to, I mean, we're not going to. Exactly. All right. So just a little bit recap, because last week I don't think we learned. And this way just to bring us up to speed. So in last week's class, in the second part of chapter 2, the Alter Rebbe is explaining the entire chapter 2 is explaining where the neshama, where the soul comes from. So we started off saying, if you remember, the soul comes from a part of God, and then we got into and we said it comes from the wisdom of God. And God and His wisdom are one, unlike man. Man and his wisdom and his intellect are separate, right? We have our brain, we have the information, and then we have our brain processor. By Hashem, it's all one. So saying that neshama comes from God's brain, it means something. It means that the soul comes from a very, very deep place. Then we asked the question. So how come? This is what we discussed last week. How come the last class? How come we have different types of Jews? You have some Jews that are more spiritually inclined, more holier Jews, and Jews that don't know they're holy. You can't say a Jew is not holy, but you have Jews that they're outwardly holy, and Jews that don't know they're holy. Why? How come? So we said because we introduced the concept of Seder Ishtalshalus, the chain-like order of descent, and we explained, generally speaking, and remembering that man was created in God's image. So everything that happens on the macro level also happens on, we'll call ourselves the micro level. Actually, a person we're going to speak about, this comes into play in chapter 4, a person is called an olam katan, a small world. So one of the questions we discussed is, how do you get from godliness to material world? So we introduced the concept of tzimtzum, of contraction, of concealment, and the watering down process, and it goes through a whole process along the way. So sometimes you could have the same departure and the same arrival, but you don't look the same. We gave the example, of flying first class and coach class, right? First class, you feel fine after the flight. Coach, you feel like a behemoth. Why? Because you're all sitting in sardine class, right? Although the departure and the arrival are exactly the same place, but the journey was different. So that's how we explained how it is here. Asaf, there's a place right next to me. I can come pick on you.
Are you sure?
Yeah. We even have Tanya for you. L'chaim, Asaf. You gotta have to give Asaf a lot of credit, because even though he gets the most abuse, he keeps coming back.
Well, afterwards you call him, confess exactly why you were wrong, why I was right. Beg me to show up.
Listen, I already had to edit last week's class because Eric said something like this.
Every single time he begs me.
So that's how we explained. That's how we explained how it is that the neshama feels its source differently. Then we said just like the neshama has, just like a body has a head, a body and a foot. So you have some Jews that are head Jews. They feel there's godliness. You sense godliness inside of them. There's many stories of, in every generation, when people met a holy person, they were, so to speak, I don't say intimidated. Please, I had to spend time. Okay? I'm pre-warning you. So there are people that are head, like just like in your head, you feel your person's alive the most, and in the leg the least. So too, you have some Jews that they feel the most in the head, and some Jews they're like leg Jews. But just like a person, their foot gets nourishment from their head. So too, every Jew gets nourishment from the leaders of the generation. So Moshe Rabbeinu Chaim. Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher, was called the Rai Mehemna, the faithful shepherd. His job, as we find in the Torah, he provided the Jewish people with man, with water. So there's physical sustenance, so too the spiritual sustenance. That's sort of to catch up what we spoke about in chapter 2. So tonight we're going to finish off chapter 2, and then we're going to go into chapter 3 as well. At the end of chapter 3, the Alter Rebbe is addressing a question. So basically, until now, you've told me that a person has no choice on how they are. I mean, right? Because the neshama is holy, but how the neshama sojourns down into the material world, that's nothing up to you. So what role do parents play? And you might say they don't play any role. But the problem is we have multiple sources that parents do play a role. So the famous line, there are 3 partners in the creation of a child: the father, the mother, and God. And there's a Kabbalistic concept. You could find it. I have the book up there. It's in Hebrew, but it's some pretty wild stuff. In some communities, there's a certain part of a book called Reishis Chachma that you're supposed to read before you get married. It's supposed to, because intimacy between a man and a woman is not just go have fun. There's an objective, there's an approach. With everything in Judaism, there's an approach. But here you're telling me that a person, how he's born, how he is, comes from God. So where do the parents come in? Are the parents just the XY chromosomes? Am I saying it right here? What role do the parents play? And we know obviously they have a role because they're instructed on page 61. Right. Because we're told that they have to conduct themselves properly. So here we go. So Masha Kosev B'Zoyar, this is what in the new print 63, in the old print by the 3 stars. Masha Kosev B'Zoyar. And this is what it says in the Zohar. Uva Zohar Chadash, and in the new Zohar, doesn't mean there was an old Zohar, the new Zohar. It just means there's a commentary in the Zohar called the Zohar Chadash. That the main character of a child, Tolo, is dependent. She Kaddish Atzmai B'Shas Tashmish Tafka. That how a couple conducts themselves when they're intimate. So here you say, what the Ikar? What do you mean? I thought you said Ikar. What do you mean? Even if the parents can be the holiest of the holy and conduct themselves as they're supposed to, but God decides how the soul is going to descend into the earth, not you. So which one is it? Masha'enkein, it says which is not the case for the children of the ignorant. That means we tell a person, if you want your child to turn into something, you have to conduct yourself properly. And any parent who has children know, and this is the problem we have many times in synagogue. People bring their kid in at 12 years old. I want you to make my kid a proud Jew. 12 years too late. Education doesn't begin at 12 years old.
12 years and 9 months too late.
12 months, 9 years, exactly. Actually, I heard that. I went to the story. A rabbi told that to a parent in their face.
Is this talking about specifically before and during when they would conceive, or just
during conception?
General, how they conduct themselves in their marital union
familiar with the whole
the
thing
children.
So right now we're talking about during the conception of the child. Right now, the Zohar talks about specifically the conception of the child. Now, obviously, how a person conducts himself is going to affect the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So
preferably a room.
Too close to dancing. If you get it, you get it. If not, I'm not saying it on camera. Otherwise, I'm going to be banished. We'll have to change the name on the door from Chabad house to house. So which one is it? Is it dependent on the parents? Or is it dependent on God? So obviously, the answer is both. So but I'm going to say it outside, and then we're going to learn it inside. And this is actually a beautiful bridge from what we're learning now into chapter 3. What the concept we're learning tonight is you have your character and you have the way you express it. Okay? So let's say for example, you could have tremendous potential, piano, or Eric's a cook, whatever it is. But let's say, sound like the chef too. A lot of people deal with food. But you could be, let's say, a great musician. You have the talent for a great musician or a great mathematician, whatever it is. But you could be, let's say, a great musician. You could be, let's say, a great musician. You have the talent for a great musician or a great mathematician, whatever it is. But you could be, let's say, a great musician. You have the talent for a great musician or a great mathematician, whatever it is. and that character is inside of you, but you never have the ability to express it. So the character you can't change, the expression you can. That expression is called, many times, we're going to have this in Tanya all the time, it's called a lavush. Lavush literally means a garment. Why is it called a garment? Because garments are interchangeable. You can't change you. You can change how you get dressed up. So the character of the soul, the author is teaching us now.
Like potential? Lavush would be like potential?
No, it's the opposite. Lavush is the expression of the potential. Your character is your potential. Your character is who you are.
Hold on.
Your abilities.
Potential. I'm in charge of my potential?
No, you're not. You're in charge on how you express yourself. Means if
How I
you're
express
meaning
myself.
if you're not good at basketball, if you're not artistic, that's not changing.
No, we're talking about the musician that has it in him to be a great musician.
Okay, so
That's his potential.
right.
So he's born with that ability.
Exactly, so-
and he's in control of the potential.
So I saw a clip of a guy saying that I guess the guy's a songwriter, and he was doing like this. He says, if you hear me just smacking my leg, you're not a songwriter. If I'm doing this, you hear a song, you're a songwriter. And I'm thinking to myself, I just hear him smacking my leg. That means that ability you're born with. Now, how you choose to work on it and how you choose to express it, that's free choice.
What's that called? Lavush?
Lavush. We're actually going to get into Lavush, actually more in chapter 4, sorry, not chapter... Chapter 3 is going to talk about the character, and chapter 4 is going to talk about the expression.
I think possibly a better analogy with a musician would be a person who's born with talent.
Right.
He has the talent. What he has to do is he has to practice to develop that talent.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, there's some people, since it's the baseball season,
Marlins are in second place.
it doesn't make a difference. They're not doing anything. They're the Marlins. I'm sure some baseball someone in the Midwest is also. I don't care. Babe Ruth had so much crazy raw talent, but for so many years, because he was eating hot dogs in between every inning and everything else, he was overweight. He wasn't recognizing his talent. Then he had a little bit of health trouble, and I think in between 1926 and 1927, he started losing weight. He started doing sit-ups. 1927, he had 60 home runs. But you can do sit-ups and you could practice and everything else. You ain't gonna be Babe Ruth. I mean, sometimes you watch sports or art, right? You watch Wayne Gretzky. There's certain things you just can't teach,
Yeah.
right? So art, I mean, some people, I mean, to me, art is in the stratosphere. I look at a picture, I look at a table, I'm like, yeah, maybe I can't build it, but I get the idea, right? I look at a picture, I'm like, how the heck did he do that? I mean, to make a straight line, that's why whenever I build something in my house, there's always the drill and the cursing. It always goes together. Because I thought I had it straight, so I measured 18 times, right? So the point is, your character of your soul, that God decides. How your soul will be able to be realized and be able to be expressed, that's your parents decide. So for example, you could be a genius. If you're taking drugs, a woman's taking drugs and smoking when she's pregnant, you're setting your kid back. I mean, the geniuses don't just come, from the Upper West Side. I'm sure there are plenty of geniuses in the projects in Brooklyn. How come we don't see it? They don't get a chance. So how a parent conducts, and this is a very powerful lesson, how we conduct ourselves at home are going to decide not the abilities, but the chances our kids have to realize their potential. It's hard enough to succeed in life. By not being a healthy parent, and like you said, healthy parenting doesn't start when your kid's 6 years old. There was a guy giving a speech at a dinner of this hoity-toity.
Using my word.
There you go. Private school, and the guy said, I forgot which private school it was, and he said, you guys drop, this is an old story, so these numbers are out of date, but you guys are dropping 15, 20 grand on your big education. But then when you go to Disney World, in order to save $60, you lie about your kid's age. all your education is down to 2. You think I put my kid in a terrific position to succeed. So God gives it the neshama. And sometimes, by the way, you could be we're going to talk about this, Alter Rebbe is going to say this, you could be the greatest parent, but the kid, you know, and you can give the kid good abilities, good opportunities. Put it that way. That's the word I was looking for. But the kid doesn't have any talent. So the neshama could be a very low soul and have tremendous ability. Sometimes the neshama is born in the dirt. The biggest proof of this is Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu, Abraham, was born to the worst parents. Terrible, wicked people. They gave their own kid. I know sometimes you get angry at your kid and you're like, I'm going to kill him. Avram's father actually wanted to kill him. So, I mean, Avram had a very, very bad father. I mean, in the end, he came around. So, we never know. You never know. That's why we don't reject anybody, because we have no idea. That's why the famous line from Pirkei Avot: "Don't judge a person until you walk in their shoes." Oh, it's actually not walk in their shoes. Don't judge him until you stand in his place. You have no idea. You have no idea what type of soul. It could be that you didn't sin because you grew up in Brooklyn, and really that if you were exposed to it, you'd be running after him, like the famous story with. I know I'm going off on tangents and stories here. The famous story.
How's that different than any other week?
Yeah, no, but because this is an important concept. The famous story with King Menashe and was it Rabbi Sheshas? I think it was. I forgot which rabbi in the Gemara. I think we discussed this before. Where he was in his class, he was talking smack about the King Menashe. King Menashe ruled the southern kingdom, the kingdom of Judah, for 55 years. 50 of those years, he was the most miserable Jew, maybe arguably. I mean, not only did he not serve God,
Haman was worse.
but he was longer, and he had more of a lasting impact.
Sure.
He uprooted Judaic practice. He put idols in the temple. I mean, he was a bad guy, very, very bad guy. So one time, during the class, Rav Sheshas, who lived 1,000 years later, was talking smack about this guy. This guy, you know, is a piece of garbage and everything else. So Menashe comes to him in a dream. Says, I heard your talking lip. I mean, I heard your. So you're such a big rabbi. Let me ask you a question, big rabbi. He asked him a question, something about purity, impurity, something to do with bread. Now, the laws of purity and impurity are very complex. When this rabbi lived, there was no temple, so he wasn't familiar with it. He said, "You call yourself a rabbi? I asked you a question that any school child would know, and you have the nerve to talk about me?" So the rabbi answers him. He says, "If you're such a great scholar, how come you did all these terrible things?" So the King Menashe said, "Oh yeah? If you lived in my time, you would be the front of the line running to serve idols. You wouldn't be able, you would pick up, you didn't wear pants. You wore like robes. You couldn't pick up your hem high enough and run fast enough to serve idols. You're not in my situation. Be quiet." So we don't know the condition of a soul. But as parents, our job is to give our kids the best opportunity. Acting like a mensch. And acting like a mensch starts, you know, when the lights are off. So, and he says, "Hainu," and he says back. This is on page 62, in the old print, 64 in the print. Hainu. This is because mishum she'ein lecha nefesh ruach neshama. There is no nefesh ruach neshama. In previous classes, we discussed the different facets of the soul. She'ein lo levush, that it does not have a garment. Min nefesh da'atzmut aviv v'imo, that doesn't have a garment. A method of expression of the father and the mother. The chol mitzvot she'oseh, and all the mitzvot that it does. Hakol aidei oto levush. Everything happens because. So when your kid acts the way it's supposed to, who gets the credit? The kid? No, the parents.
Up until the age of 13.
Right, but the parents. But by the way, think about it. I once heard babies are born with their hands closed. Why? Did your baby start opening the hands yet? Or still like this?
No, she's in.
Yeah. Why? Because it signifies that when a baby is born, everything revolves around itself. Everything's mine. Right? It's 2:00 in the morning. They have to work. They don't care. I want to eat now. Right? We're not born thinking of other people. We have to be taught that. So all the mitzvot that a person does, it's because the parents taught him. Afilu shefa shenotnim lo m'shamayim, even the benevolence that comes from heaven, hakol hu aidei levush, all this happens of the garment that is formulated by the mother and the father. So because the soul is so strongly bound up with this garment, the Zohar refers to the garment in the context as a soul. So in the previous page, when the Zohar wrote that a person's soul is dependent on the conduct of the parent, he didn't mean the actual soul. He meant the expression of the soul. But because, you can't experience a person's character without expression, so he calls it soul, but it's not exactly the same thing. Now he says, and if a person sanctifies himself, he will bring forth, he will get a nice garment. He's giving his child a good opportunity, right? He started investing. I'm sure I'll be able to. Right? I always say my father didn't give me any money to start off. Right? But yeah, I'm sure a lot of people would put money away for your kids, right? In this way, that's great. I'm happy for you. I shouldn't say that, by the way. My father did help me. I shouldn't say that. He'll bring down a holy garment for his child. Now, and here it's going to say, and here where we don't know. And even let's say the person has a great, powerful soul, but you can have the greatest potential, but you need to have opportunity. Tzricha, it needs l'kiddush aviv. It needs the sanctification. It needs the conduct. It needs the molding, the rearing of the parents. You can be the greatest person.
Where is it found that you choose your parents?
Where is it found? You choose your parents.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar.
No. So
I didn't. That doesn't mean it's not written.
your soul, from what I'm familiar with,
yeah.
chooses your parents. It chooses the life experience that they can provide because it's specific to the tikkun you need.
I think now you're saying something rings the bell, but that's something maybe you could look it up. Maybe look up in the Gemara Nida. The Gemara Nida talks about what happens before a child is born.
It's sort of like I'd say the dot and the ketel work together on this.
What should I say? If you find it, okay. Aval neshama atzma, bottom of 62, but the soul itself, hine lifamim at times. He goes the shamat adam gavog, a neshama, soul of a great person, Lane Kates, infinitely great person. Liot beno shel adam nevzav v'shafel. It happens that there could be a very, very great person, and his parents are very, very simple people. Not always, and this answers one of the questions. Sometimes you have very great men, and their kids are regular people, or even worse. Sometimes you have a guy who's, a regular guy, and his child is amazing. There's stories in the Gemara sometimes. They say, what did your father do? Because no, my father was a regular schmo. He was honest. It wasn't anything like, it wasn't Moshe. It depends on how. There's so many factors that go into the character of a person. You can't judge another person. It's your job. I'm the youngest in my family. So before I got married, I was working with my father. My father used to work on a truck. When I said my father worked to help to support us, my father worked he schlepped. He came home, sweated through, summer, winter. The man worked very hard. He's actually still working, by the way. I still have bills to pay. I'm kidding. So I remember once asked my father. I said, "You have 8 kids, and thank God, the good kids. What's the secret?" He said, "Mordechai."
8 that you know of.
Right. Right. The other kids that were misbehaving, I kicked out. Right. He tells me, it's b'siyata d'shmaya. It's your job to do what you got to do, and ask for Hashem's blessing. There's no secret. You don't know. You really don't know. And and I'm sure some families.
What
Same
did you say exactly? What's the line?
B'siyata d'shmaya. It's Aramaic with the help of God.
Can you say it again?
It's Aramaic. B'siyata d'shmaya.
B'siyata
D'shmaya. You ever see Beis Samach? You ever see Beis Samach Daled on top of things?
Yes.
That's what it stands for. B'siyata d'shmaya.
Really?
Really, really.
You see that?
So sometimes you see a family, same parents. You know, it's not like they goofed off, and same parents. One kid's an amazing kid, and one kid, actually, Cyril's friend, one kid is like, you know, kind of moving away from Torah observance. And they actually took a picture of the family bar mitzvah. And the other kid is like, his hat's like over here, long hair. You can tell he doesn't care about his appearance. And the whole day has his nose in his book. And the same parents, one after the, you can't say, okay, one's number 8, and the other's number 1. It was 15 years in between. No. 1 and 2. Same everything. You don't know. You don't know. We don't know. Our job is to be the best we can. Like it says in the Rizal, calls them, look at the Parsha. Okay. So thus concludes chapter 2 before we get to chapter 3. Any questions? Yay, nay? No?